If you're looking for a sleeper team in the Big Ten for the 2025 season, a lot of people would suggest the Washington Huskies. This is a team that has a lot of excitement heading into the year, and we're going to take a deep dive into this program to see what we should expect from this team this year. Now, Jed Fish knew that it was going to take some time. It wasn't going to be a turnaround as quickly as a lot of people might have thought, but you knew that he did some good things at Arizona. You're hoping he's going to do the same thing as Washington. And now this year is the year that people really expect some big things from this team. A 6-7 season was solid. It's not the most impressive record, but when you look and take a step back to see that this is going to take some time, 6-7 is not bad. And again, there's a lot of excitement about this team. And even with a new coordinator change on defense, bringing in Ryan Walters was about as good a hire as you could have asked for when you're looking to replace a Belichick, honestly. So you're looking at a team that expects really big things in 2025, and it'll be fun to see how things all sort out, how this team actually performs. Do they live up to expectations? Can they truly be that sleeper? Now, the roster had plenty of turnover as well, and I think for the most part, you feel that you lost. There are a few guys that probably will be missed for sure. You know, Carson Bruner departing is definitely going to be a hard one to stomach. You lose Thaddeus Dixon and Kamari House to North Carolina. There's a couple other guys that, have that veteran presence that it could give you a sense of, oh, we're really going to miss those guys. But this staff did a really good job of replacing that talent. Maybe not directly, but they brought in guys that are going to help. So, yes, you lose Carson Bruner, but you bring in Jacob Manu, who previously has that relationship with Jed Fish and this staff. You also bring in a couple of secondary players that are going to make a huge impact as well. So, I think that you do lose some key players, but you also bring in some guys that are going to have a tremendous impact on this team. And so you bring in a Dakario Davis, Jacob Manu, and Taitai Uyangalele from Arizona. Those three obviously had that previous relationship, so it was a natural fit for them to go to Washington. You also bring in some guys that are less proven at the FBS level. So a guy like an Alex McLaughlin from Northern Arizona has something to prove, but he'll be fun to see in that secondary as well. So overall, yes, you did lose some key pieces, but overall, I feel pretty solid about what this team did to replace some of that talent. And this is a team that has, I think, internally high expectations, and the hype surrounding this team is growing in large part because Damon Williams Jr. is coming back. And when you look at what he did in the bowl game against Louisville, that is a big driving force in the hype surrounding his game. Now, it's fun to see what he can do if you put that into a full season. He's not going to obviously have that production week in and week out. But if he does, you're looking at a dangerous team in 2025. He had 944 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 1 interception for the entire season. He also had 282 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. He was used throughout the entire season, but it was the bowl game where we truly saw him shine. And he's not going to be the biggest quarterback, 5'11", 190 pounds. So you're going to have to find ways to get him in space and get him into successful positions. And I think this staff knows how to do that. It was kind of a good situation last year. Having Will Rogers was a nice piece to have. You have that veteran who understands where this program is headed. He understands the future, was Williams. And it was fun to see those two work together. And now it's time for Williams to take over this offense. And he's an electric player that can make plays with both his arm and his legs. Obviously, his development as a passer will be super important for this team to have success. His ability to make some throws with guys that are going to be taller than him up front. But we've seen that nowadays being a tall quarterback is nice, but it's not essential to being successful. And you throw in that he is a runner as well, he is going to have a lot of opportunities to show his talent, whether that's as a passer, whether that's as a runner. So you feel pretty confident of what he can do. You have a ton of excitement surrounding his game. And the talent around him is only going to make things easier too. So while he has to do a lot himself, he's going to be under the spotlight. He's going to be scrutinized probably more than a lot of people. He has the skill set and he has the talent around him to have a successful season. One of those guys that's around him is Jonah Coleman. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised that Jonah Coleman returned to campus. I thought that he was going to go pro, especially after last year. Ran for 1,053 yards and 10 touchdowns. So I thought that maybe this was his last season. He was going to go pro, and that was the last of it. But he ultimately decides to come back and join Damon Williams in what should be a dynamic tandem in the backfield. That's a really fun group to watch, and that pairing should do a lot of damage in the Big Ten. So that's a fun, exciting thing if you're a Washington fan to pay attention to in 2025. It's just going to be how many explosive plays, how much help do they get from the guys up front. This is a talented offensive line. We'll dive into them, but it's going to be fun. Now, the depth is where you might have some more concerns, really, just because you don't have a ton of proven talent. Kai Horton is going to be the guy you turn to if something happens to Damon Williams or you need somebody to step in, but he doesn't have a ton of production coming in from Tulane. The rushing attack should be aided by a pretty good running back group. Adam Muhammad had 193 yards last year. Jordan Washington does not have a ton of experience, but is a very talented player. And you also bring in a transfer in Beck Walker, who could step in as well. So after Jonah Coleman, you kind of have some questions, but there's definitely talent for this team to utilize. And it'll just come down to the consistency and what depth you truly have with this group, because right now there's a lot of roster turnover. Right now, Jedd Fisch is trying to get his guys into this program, and sometimes that means that there's going to be some uncertainty. He does have what he wants in the backfield in terms of his starting quarterback and his starting running back. So overall, you feel like you're in a good position if you're Washington's coaching staff. Now, how successful this team is obviously hinges on Damon Williams and his abilities, but the wide receivers can make his life a lot easier. Same with the tight end position. Another guy that was kind of surprising to see come back was Denzel Boston. Had a big year last year, 63 catches for 834 yards and 9 touchdowns. Honorable mention, all Big Ten selection. He is going to be the wide receiver one, the guy that Damon Williams looks for on a consistent basis. You bring in Omari Evans from Penn State, 21 catches for 415 yards and 5 touchdowns. He is looking to potentially take on a bigger role and be more of a factor than he was with the Nittany Lions. And that was the Nittany Lions passing attack that honestly had its ups and downs. There were some good things you see. I mean, Evans nearly averaged 20 yards per catch. So he's an explosive player who has the ability to make plays. It's just that we only saw him catch 21 passes. You want to see him do a little bit more, and joining Denzel Boston should be an opportunity for him to do that. Rasheed Williams is another guy to pay attention to. I think that this coaching staff is excited about what he has in terms of skill set, what he can bring to this offense. 11 catches last year for 138 yards and 1 touchdown. After that group, you have some younger talent and inexperienced players that are looking to be more part of that rotation. You're not just going to rely on 3 wide receivers. You need a 4th and 5th option. So maybe a guy like Raiden Vines-Bright or Chris Lawson, 2 freshmen, could step in early. Again, this staff is trying to get their guys in. And if that means that you have to do it with freshmen, then so be it. Audric Harris had 2 catches last year for this team for 17 yards. He could be part of that as well. But they are looking for plenty of competition outside of those top 3 guys. They are looking for guys to step up. And if they do, Damon Williams should have an exciting year, and we already know what he's capable of doing. But if you throw in a group of wide receivers that can help him even more, you feel really confident about what this offense can do. Decker DeGraff is going to be a guy to keep an eye on at the tight end position. 15 catches last year for 233 yards and 3 touchdowns. If he is able to become more of a reliable target for Damon Williams in terms of number of catches, I mean, he only caught 15 passes last year. You'd like to see that number increase. That just gives him another option. Quinton Moore only caught 1 pass, but could be part of that as well. Cade Eldridge comes in from USC, only caught 3 passes. So the depth maybe is a concern in terms of pass catching at the tight end position, but there are options. That's the kind of the nice thing about the offseason is you can be optimistic about these players and about these rotational pieces because we don't know what they can do, but the talent is definitely there. And this passing attack should be fun if some of those guys are able to step up. The offensive line does have a lot of pressure on them. Keeping Damon Williams upright is going to be a big part of their responsibility, and it'll be fun to see how they compete. The nice thing, though, is that they don't have to rely on just themselves to keep him upright. He has the ability to escape the pocket. He has the ability to run downfield. So it's not like they have a guy who can't move. They have a very mobile quarterback, which makes their life a little bit easier. You bring in Carver Willis from Kansas State, started 11 games for the Wildcats last year. He is a new face that will be fun to watch at left tackle. He'll have plenty of competition, and really the tackle positions will be fun to watch. I think that they are the deepest of this offensive line. So a guy like Soani Fasolo could be part of that as well. Started 3 games last year for this team. Maximus McCree is a backup on the other side behind Drew Azopardi. So you feel like you're in a good position with him at right tackle. He started all 13 games for this team last year, but McCree started 5 for this squad in 2024. The interior offensive line is kind of a different story, but the talent is definitely there. Paki Finau only played 3 games last year, so he is going to be relatively green when it comes to experience in the starting lineup. You also have Landon Hatchett and Garen Hatchett, who combined for 10 starts last year. Garen comes in from Oklahoma, and you're looking for them all, this entire group, to stay healthy. That is the biggest thing. The nice thing is that you do have depth pieces. We talked about the tackles. You have Zachary Henning coming back at the center position, and then you have 2 freshmen that could play a role. So again, you might have some younger players that have to play, which for a lot of people might be a concern, but I think this just speaks to what this coaching staff believes. They want to get their guys on campus, and they want to make sure that they have the right guys that are bought into what this team is trying to do. Kind of the same thing on the defense. This staff brought in a number of Arizona transfers, and there's a reason why they did that. This group understands what the coaching staff is trying to do, even if they weren't on campus last year, even if not on the roster, but they are able to understand what this coaching staff wants. So this group on every level brings in a new face from Arizona, and that's going to help a ton to give you that continuity in terms of establishing culture, building that culture, and getting this team to play at a certain level. Now, the defensive line is going to be a fun group. You don't have a ton of proven disruptors yet, but you have the talent to do it. So Zach Durfee is back after having 16 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. Opposite of him, Isaiah Ward, 28 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. You want to see those two become even more disruptive. So they do have guys that have done it. You want to see it more consistently. You also have guys behind them like Jacob Lane and Deshaun Lynch. Those guys combined for 30 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, and 1 sack. Russell Davis could be part of that. Milton Hopkins. You don't really know who is going to be the guys that rotate in because you have so much competition. So you know you have talent. You know you have guys that are capable. I really like the defensive end rotation. On the interior, Ontario Thompson comes in from Western Michigan. 34 tackles for him, 2 tackles for loss, 1 sack. Logan Sacapolo is going to be another guy to keep an eye on there. Steps into more of a prominent position. We talked about Taitai Uiagalelei coming in from Arizona. 35 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. Alinius Davis, 14 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1 sack. You also bring in Samote Pepa from Utah. Bryce Butler is back. So overall, this defensive line feels like it's got good depth. It's just going to come down to what is the ceiling for this group? Can they be more disruptive? Can they make those plays that set an offense back? This is a group that has the ability to do that. They just have to find a way to raise their ceiling. I think that they've solidified themselves as a high floor group, but can you elevate that ceiling as well? That's going to make life very miserable for the teams they face. It's also going to help the guys behind them. The linebacker position honestly feels pretty stacked. You brought in Jacob Manu from Arizona, guy who has a ton of experience. He's very familiar with Jedd Fisch and what he wants to do. and it'll be fun to see how he fits in Ryan Walters' system. When you look at what Ryan Walters did at Illinois, you had guys all over the field that were making plays on every single level. Jacob Manu should have a lot of fun in that defense. You also bring in Tariq Al-Uta from Washington State, 76 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 4 fumble recoveries, 3 forced fumbles, 3 interceptions. That is a guy who I think thrives in Ryan Walters' system. He knows how to make plays on every level. He knows how to get the ball back to his offense, and Washington is going to love what that means for them this year. You also brought in Ziri Alexander from UCF, 68 tackles for him, 6 tackles for loss. He is returning to the West Coast after going to UCF, had a good year, and now gets a chance to compete in the Big Ten. That is going to be a step up, but he's a nice depth piece to have. When it comes to production, you don't have a ton more at this position, but Hayden Moore, Devin Bryant, and Anthony Ward are 3 guys to keep an eye on for depth and have the talent to be able to contribute as rotational pieces. Your starters are pretty much set, and you have a guy in Alexander that you feel is that third person in that rotation. And after that, it's just about solidifying who that 4th and 5th option actually will be. And this is a defense that up front feels like it's in a good place. And the secondary is kind of the same thing. You have 2 of the biggest corners in college football. Ephesians Prezak is going to have a big year, I think, because he's joined by Dakario Davis. Now, Dakario Davis stands 6'4", 200 pounds, and that's going to be really fun to watch him in terms of how he helps his draft stock. Ephesians Prezak is 6'4", 195 pounds. You have 2 6'4" corners. That is going to be really fun to watch. That is going to make life a lot more difficult for the teams that they face, because you're not going to be able to win those 50-50 ball situations as much as you might have in the past. You're also going to find that these guys, just because they're big doesn't mean that they can't run. Both of them can run with some of the wide receivers they're going to face, and that's really fun. The schedule is going to provide some big time talent at wide receiver, and we'll talk about one in particular, arguably the best player in college football, and how that matchup sorts out for, or at least leads up to, an incredibly exciting matchup for these 2 cornerbacks. CJ Christian comes in from FIU, 80 tackles for him, 3 tackles for loss, 1 interception. He and Mikel Esteen are going to be really fun in terms of the safety position. They'll lead the way there. You also brought in Alex McLaughlin from Northern Arizona, 96 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, 2 interceptions. I could see him also moving over to the nickel position, or the Husky position, as they'll call it. He is someone that is going to get on the field. It's just a matter of how and how often. That's going to be a really exciting piece to use, kind of that versatile piece that you can move around. Other than that, you don't have a ton of proven production in the secondary, but you have enough where you should be able to get by. So a guy like Dyson McCutcheon is going to be really fun to watch behind Rashawn Clark, or pushing Rashawn Clark for time at that nickel position, at the Husky position. McLaughlin could be part of that as well. Vincent Holmes, Leroy Bryant, Elias Johnson, and Dylan Robinson are all relatively inexperienced, but the talent, like I said, with all the other levels is definitely there. So it's not necessarily a huge concern that you don't have as much depth as you might like. Again, it's a building process, and right now the staff feels like they have the right pieces in place. It's just going to come down to getting the reps and having guys show that they can handle life in the Big Ten. And this is going to be a schedule in the Big Ten. No matter who you get, it is going to provide plenty of challenges. Now, I will say you do get plenty of opportunities for wins right off the bat. Colorado State and UC Davis come to Washington early in the season. You then get a bye week before you go to Washington State. Now, the one thing I'll say is that you need to take that Washington State game seriously. I don't like that it's early in the season. I wish it was at the end of the season, but this is the new world that we live in, unfortunately. The reason I say that is that this is a game that Washington should win. Even though it's on the road, even though it's a rivalry game, that's a game that Washington feels confident they should win. Also, you have Ohio State waiting the week after. You have Jeremiah Smith, who is going to give your corners plenty of trouble, but that is an electric matchup that I'm really excited to watch to end September. So that's going to be a tough one. And if you're not careful, Washington State might be able to trip you up. So you have to be able to kind of do what Jed Fish has been trying to do, is treat this like an NFL program. The amount of NFL experience that he has on his coaching staff, as well as how they train, how they prepare, that is going to show us how successful this team can be by how well they take things week by week. Yeah, you can look ahead to Ohio State, but if you don't take Washington State seriously, that's going to be a problem. After Ohio State, you have Maryland and Rutgers before you go to Michigan, another game that is going to give you some challenges. You also host Illinois. That is a team that is looking to make the college football playoff. Then you get a bye week before you face Wisconsin and Purdue, who many believe are going to be at the bottom of the Big Ten, before you go to UCLA and host Oregon, kind of a revival of the Pac-12 of sorts. There are plenty of challenging games. There are plenty of opportunities for Washington to make some noise, but there are also opportunities for them to slip up. Right now, if everything goes to plan, I think that this team can definitely go 10-2. Having Ohio State, Michigan, Illinois, and Oregon on the schedule gives you some challenges that make it hard to win 10 games. But it's definitely possible if this team is firing on all cylinders, if they have the right pieces in place. I think at worst though they're 6-6. That's like everything is not going as planned, but this is still a bowl team. They've made enough strides where a bowl game is kind of the expectation, that is the floor. Now a lot of people think that that's kind of the case. 4% think they'll finish first through third in the Big Ten. That would be an ultimate sleeper pick there. 4 through 8, 60% say it there. 9 through 13, 28%. So majority think they're going to be in that probably 6-6 to 10-2 range. And then 8% say 14 through 18. I don't see that happening. I don't think that this is a team that is going to struggle to win football games. There are a lot of winnable games on the schedule, and they do get some of those tougher games at home. In fact, their two toughest games on the schedule are in Washington. So that'll be fun to watch. It's a team that has a ton of excitement. Damon Williams, if he lives up to the hype, will be an electric player to watch. He'll be worth watching week in and week out. And if he lives up to the hype, this is a team that has a lot of exciting things ahead of them in 2025.